Well, I hope you have enjoyed Geddit so far. It's the first one for the year. I hope you enjoyed the skit, you understood it. There's actually 6 more coming, maybe 7. So I hope that you'll be here for the next one. In fact, there'll be things that we've talked about today in the skit, in the themes that have been raised. I'm pretty sure you won't remember a lot of them, but we'll put it up online as soon as we can. We haven't put some ones from 5 years ago. So we'll try our very, very best. We're a very busy church. But they'll raise themes that will help you to think about the things that you need to think about at Geddit. Because here we want to help you. And that's why we're hoping that you're going to come for the whole 7 or 8 in the Geddit series. And it does extend into 2021. We have a busy church schedule, So we're hoping that you'll make time in your busy schedule to come whenever we're putting up the Geddits. So next week, of course, we have regular Sunday church. You can join us for that if you want, and maybe after tonight, maybe you'll think about that. But the next time we'll meet, we'll continue with the skit, the second part of it, and then actually I'll be addressing some of the themes that came up from today. Okay, but today we're going to make a simple start. And although for some of you, as you work through this with me, you'll be thinking, actually, a lot of the stuff that you're talking about, I don't find it easy to think about. And 1 or 2 people said to me this morning, it raised issues which I'm not sure I'm equipped to think about. It's hard. And I understand that. I understand that not everyone has the time to be working at these things. We're busy people. We're almost on survival mode. But you'll find that at some point in time in your life, you're actually not as busy as you think, but you're still not thinking yet. You're actually past survival mode. You have money in the bank. You have the car. You have the house. You have the life. You have the wife, the husband. You have the family. But you're still not thinking yet. And then you might actually come to a point where you come crashing down. You might realize that you actually need to have done the thing that you were reluctant to. Because let's admit it, one of the key reasons, I think, why we are reluctant to put time into something like this, unless maybe we kind of did a skit for you and put it together with a whole bunch of friends who love you and care for you, and there's a nice dinner with it in a nice environment. Maybe one of the reasons why you're not doing it, why you're not happy to think about these things unless we do it this way, is because you're not just busy, but you're reluctant. It's true, isn't it? I'm not pointing fingers at anyone. You just got to admit it to yourself. That thinking is just not our strong suit. Especially as Asians, right? After all, although we've left China or India for a long time, reality is we ran away from a troubled situation. We're still very good at running away. I was doing a quick survey in one of my groups. I said, who here from the Chinese-speaking background, and there's about 50% of my group that's from Chinese-speaking background, you come from, say, Hwa Chong or some Chinese school. Who here thought of migrating out of Malaysia into where? And the answer was always generally Singapore. Why? Pay increase. And then the second choice was Taiwan. Why? Better culture, similar to us. Let's continue. Better culture for us, similar to us, and maybe a bit politically sensitive, but we feel like, we can be who we are. The rest of us who are English speaking, I think it's about the same, really. The reality is that we may go to Singapore, but the world's really our oyster. Singapore is just the entry point. We want to go from there to Australia, there to Canada, there to New York, or wherever it is. We don't really want to think about why we're doing these things. We just want to upgrade, consume, move on, have bigger experiences. We find it hard to think about the deeper things in life, which make us what we are, which answer the tough questions, and which help us see ourselves through some of the most difficult periods in life. We find it very difficult to make ourselves see who we are. Even when we're feeling down in the dumps, even in the toughest of times, we functionally think it's still better not to have to think hard about who we are. But there's really no way we're going to get away from this. There's just no getting away from this, no getting around it. I remember sadly one girl who came to our church for a bit, found it helpful, but then she left, and I thought, is it because someone insulted you? Is it because it was unhelpful to you? But she said the main reason is because she felt like every time she came here, she had to think. She had to think big thoughts about who she is, what she's doing in life, and all that. I know it's uncomfortable for you because, as I said, we're almost on survival mode only. Even 3 generations after we've left India or China or wherever it is, we're still kind of still in that mode. But the reality is we can't get away from the fact that we are human beings, and human beings are not designed to just survive, to just function. Even when we are poor, we still need to ask the question of, who are we? Why are we here? You know, in business, one saying that they have in business is very similar. We say, when you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. You're planning to fail. Now you think the moment you hear that, of course lah, business must plan. No, that's not how it really works. I've worked on some of the biggest multinationals in the world. It doesn't really work like that. You literally do sit around one day and get an idea and just decide, oh, let's just do it. You're desperate for an idea because your boss going, give me an idea by Monday, and then it just comes out. You're not really planning. You're not, there is this myth, of course, of the Japanese planning things 100 years ahead. But a lot of Japanese CEOs now, they don't last more than 10 years in their jobs. But in business, they understand what we should all understand, that we need to think long and hard in a way that's bigger than just this moment, what I'm eating, what I'm feeling, what I want to do. This is saying that we really need to think, to understand ourselves, to get it. This is why we've called the whole series Geddit. This is why our website, geddit.my, looks the way it does, to help you understand what we're trying to do here. And you think that the more successful someone is, the more they're a doer, right? The less they are a thinker. Wrong again. A billionaire like Warren Buffett, just to check, who here knows who Warren Buffett is? Okay, every time I say it, I get worried because these days people don't really know. But maybe you know Bill Gates, right? These two guys, they're really cool friends. But my daughter was watching a documentary on Bill Gates inside his head. The documentary was called, and his PA was packing books away. Apparently, every time he goes away, he reads. And he's constantly reading. He's got one of the biggest libraries. And Warren Buffett's the same. Warren Buffett has, I think, a record-breaking, he reads 250 pages a day. Well, some of us don't read more than 250 pages a year. 250 pages. It's got to the point where in university, a lot of your university students, you don't actually read the textbook anymore. Let's admit it, some of you have parents here. You just get the outlines from the lectures, and you read the lecturer's notes, the PowerPoint slides. You just read the slides. You walk into the exam, you spew out all you know, you come out with a pass, and you're done. You've never actually read the textbook. Who here has even read the bibliography of an article? Who here has gone and looked for the bibliography of the article and then read more books? Who here has gone to the library? Library? What is the library? My daughter is in a very nice school. The library is very nice. She says no one goes to it. It's essential that we really slow down. I don't just mean in terms of time, but in our mind, we really slow down. We don't laugh at the guy who's saying, wait, I'm thinking. Like one of the boys was on the bench in the middle of all the activity. It's really important that we pay respect to the people who know more than us, to the God who created us, who gave us His Word. You ever thought of the Bible that way? I come from a time when things were more analog, when we got a gift, like a book, and we unwrap it carefully. I would keep the wrapping. You don't have that anymore. You just get e-gifts or e-wallets or e-whatever. But I come from a time when books contain holy words because they changed my world and my life. It helped me to think and cope with some of the hardest points, lowest moments in my life. And of all those books, I understood that a holy book like the Bible, that's a precious thing. I found one when I was 12 in my house. My house is not a Christian household. It's materialistic, Taoist, superstitious, and basically all about success. But I found one, a King James Bible, and I wanted to read it so bad, but it was so hard to understand. We really need, I think, some more of that attitude today with regards to the Bible. We really need to want to think God's thoughts so that we have the blueprint of life on this planet, and therefore, in fact, to have the kind of hope in life that we need to be able to not just survive in this life, but to thrive according to God's plan. In church right now, that's really what we're doing. We are looking at God's story, God's plan for His world. His world, a bit like what you heard from the skit, main rule, don't screw up people's property, and this world belongs to Him. So in this series, we're trying to learn how to think God's thoughts based on knowing what this world is, because He made it and He made us in it. And that gives us what we need in this life to get through both the lowest moments and as well as handle the highest moments. We need hope. My friends, when you have nothing to hope in, you become more and more, in fact, despairing of the human condition if you start to think about it and see it for what it is. You may think that your first accident, or you being a victim of some scam, or the first time you face some bully, you may think that that will pass. But in fact, in life, you'll continue to face that so often that you will at some point despair of the human condition. And when you have nothing to hope in, then what you are, on the so-called positive side, is just a composite of all your desires and wants. From one moment when you are despairing about the state of things, why that person banged into your car and was so unreasonable and started shouting at you in front of everybody in the federal highway, all the way to your next distraction, your next holiday, your next meal. When you have nothing to hope in, you're just going to either sink or just be a composite of your despairs or your desires and wants. When your passion for things is just really a result of trigger experiences and stimuli, then you'll find, in fact, that the very thing you need besides hope, which is love, that very thing you need, love, true love, to both motivate you to persevere with yourself when you don't think you're worthy, also to love people that you don't think are so helpful or worthy sometimes. When you need that, you'll find it wanting, because what you have mistaken for love when you first got married to that person or started going out to that person is actually just lust. I'm speaking about some pretty big things here, and I won't get to them until talk 6, 7, 8. You're going to have to be here till then. I hope you will. But I'm anticipating it now for you, because we're not talking about small things in Geddit. We're not just saying to you, hey, you got to read your Bible and then it'll be fine. We're not saying to you, hey, put up your hand, and when you put up your hand, Jesus loves you, and then you'll be fine. We're saying to you, this is life. In fact, even after we talk about this stuff to you, even after maybe you've become a Christian, because I'm speaking to you as a non-Christian now, you'll find that it takes a lot of understanding and thinking through lots of stuff. You'll find that you'll become a very big thinker, at least compared to maybe some of your friends. Your friends will say, what happened to you? How come now everything I say, you're like, let's think about that. Well, maybe you don't like that version of yourself now, that you think you just want to be a party dude, you just want to be relaxed. But again, I say to you, if your whole life is one where you have not thought things through from God's word, from God's scripture, from God's Bible, then you'll just be acting from your stimulus and desire. And I'm going to show you later that that's really no different from being an animal, and being an animal is not a good thing. If I ask you at any point in your life, without God, what are you doing with your life? You'll just say, I like blank, X, Y, Z. That's why I'm doing it. And when you don't like it, you're just going to switch it and change it. And okay, it sounds all right, even though it's something you study in university. Your parents are frustrated. I can tell you as a parent, I'm a bit frustrated. I come from a generation, the last generation, I think I'm at the cusp of it, which did what we were told. Our parents will say to you, I have 7 uncles. When you look at their life, there's nothing about they did what they liked. It was literally, my granddad said, doctor, engineer, lawyer. He just went like that. That's why that uncle, although his math is no good, is an accountant. See, that approach has problems too. But you're from the other side. I'm in between, and you're from completely the other side. Yours is, one moment, you want to be a fire engine. That was me at 6. I wanted to be a fire truck. Next moment, you want to be a lawyer. That was me at 12. Next moment, you want to be a financier. That was me at 15. Next moment, you want to be a Christian pastor. That was me at 17. My parents all marble, I tell you. But you actually do it, don't you? You actually drop that girlfriend. You actually drop that job. You actually walk out. Winnie was telling me, One person actually signed up for work in her company and left the same day. You all, but you're doing it. How about you all yourself? Not We're doing it because we're wealthier than we have ever been. Our great-grandparents hated their jobs, but they needed the money, so they didn't think. You don't have to think because you have the money, so you don't think. Either way, our great-grandparents and us, we're all in the same boat. One's trying to survive, another one doesn't care about surviving. Your grandparents may be really worried about you. They're saying, how can you be like this? But actually, grandma, granddad, our problem goes way back. It's bigger than this. Our problem goes to the fact that we have never learned why we are here, what we are here for, and what we're doing. All we become, especially if you're Asian, is a top scoring machine. Boys, better study. Can I get a PlayStation if I study? Can. Okay, you study. 10 A's come out. Happy? Okay, PlayStation 4. If I get 15, can I get PlayStation 5 before it's out? Can. 15 A's, are you happy? In fact, our world is not made for us human beings to simply just do whatever we want, to consume, to strive, to walk around like evolved apes in sneakers, enjoying ourselves, consuming things, feeling depressed, popping some pills, and then getting back up, and then continuing to exist and consume. You and I want to just exist and consume. Look at Malaysia. How many malls do we have? Admittedly, it's weather lah. It's one massive, giant, air-conditioned city. So you can go from one boba to another boba whilst buying stuff from Forever 21 before it closes down. But even all that gets hard eventually. You know how I use malls, by the way? I use them for my gym. Because by the time I go from one shop to another, I'm very worked out for the week, okay? Maybe that's what you're doing. But isn't the reason why the mall's doing well compared to America? It's because we are consumers. And that's not answering life's questions. You can be a foodie. You can be a motorhead. Maybe even a workaholic. But after a while, I guarantee you, you'll actually be tired. I never thought I'd be saying this, but I am actually tired of food. Some days I just don't mind not eating. Of course, if I'm starving on the planet, it's different. But you know, KL food tastes all the same. And it's not just because of the person cooking it. I know you're like, yeah lor, migrants, they don't know how to cook our baba food lah. I'll tell you, okay, Penangites don't run out yet. Even Penang, after all, it tastes, your kway teow is great. It deserves 1 Michelin star. But after I line up for 2 hours, I'm thinking, it's still noodles lah at the end of the day. The hum is a bit tastier, maybe more sausage fat. But in the end, why would I drive 7 hours here and 7 hours back, line up for 3 hours in the hot sun, just so auntie can cook me a dish and then scold me for it? Oi sek, moi sek. Mana. I get tired. Now, my dad, this morning I didn't want to say him by name, but never mind. My dad wasn't always in thriving mode, he was in survival mode. And I say this, I don't want to insult his memory, but you guys are young, so I got to share this stuff for you so that you don't have to do necessarily the same thing. When you're younger, you want to have everything, right? Some of the older guys here, you want to have everything. Ferrari, buy. Lambo, buy. Audi, buy. Char Kway Teow in Penang, buy. We had a friend who would fly to Shanghai to eat sometimes, just for fun. Now I hear turbulence and I hear thunder, I'm thinking turbulence, I stay at home, I eat kaya roti, enough. Some people, they live their whole lives just to be bigger monkeys who eat more and wear more bling bling on their shoes. And then later they turn to charity and then like get religion. I'm going to shoot that down in about half an hour, I think, just very quickly. But, thank you, God. But, generally speaking, that's applause, I hope. But you and I got to realize what my dad realized, which is when he was younger and he wasn't always thriving, he wanted to have the ability to walk into a restaurant and then to just order whatever he liked. You know one of those meals that we always have during Chinese New Year? He liked to have it whenever he wanted. Buddha jump over the wall. That means inside, you got all the world's rarest animals that don't taste very good, but then you put in $1,000 of ingredients and it tastes good. You know that's what happens with your shark's fin, right? Actually, it tastes like plastic, but we're going to kill a couple of pigs and then make it taste good that way. Well, that costs $650, sometimes $800, sometimes $1,000 a bowl. He'd like doing that. But you know what? Towards the end of his life, I noticed if he would order it and then not eat it, he just say, "Y'all eat, I eat already." He literally has eaten so much of it and so often that he doesn't care anymore for it. Every Tuesday night after golf, my dad would drive to exotic places with his friends, and they would just eat. I think in the end, my dad missed mainly one thing. It wasn't food. Even with all the money in the world, what he really wished, I think, was to understand me better and understand himself. Friends, I plead with you, take this seriously. On a night like tonight, it's time that you face up to the whole truth about yourself, about who you are. You want to have a fast track to this? I'm helping you now, I hope. But the Bible is your fast track. The Bible says all the toil of man is for his mouth, yet the appetite is not satisfied. This man knows because of two reasons. One, this man himself, well, he's 100,000 times richer than your dad, my dad, the richest man. He is wealthy. He owns a nation. He has thousands of servants. This is what it looks like to be an emperor. And this man has experienced so much that he can say this sentence so clearly and so truthfully. That's the first thing you need to learn. Just like from my dad, you can learn from his experience. But the second reason why you need to listen to him is this. He's speaking as one of God's writers of the Bible. The Bible is your fast track to knowing who you are. You don't have to go through the same pain, the same joy, the same experiences in order to discover something true about yourself at your deathbed. You can do it right now. Because that's the greatest reason why you need to be confronted with and confronting yourself, the truth, which is the revealing of God in His Word to us. Because you can know who you are, who we are, because God has not left it unknown to us, because He has written the Bible. Geddit is kind of a softer way to get into it. You come to us on Sunday, we're just full-blown into it. It's like some tuition class on steroids, I suppose. That's how people like to think about us. Geddit's me explaining it a bit slower, a bit easier, a bit better for you maybe. It's too bad it's only 6 times or 7 times a year. But if you can come on a regular Sunday, I would love it. If you disappeared next Geddit, I come in, it's all just to church. I'm like, where's everybody? No, Pastor, they all go to church already. Oh, that's great, man. That's fantastic. Let's just do the skit for ourselves for fun. I don't really care that if you don't fill up Geddit at all. I don't really care. I'm not really here to fill up the numbers. I don't have a bonus end of the year that's based on Geddits. 400 new people came and Geddit. Another $400 for me. Yay. No, man. I'm here because of you so that you are helped. And you can be helped directly. You don't even need me in some sense. You just need to read the Bible, maybe the friend who brought you. You need to confront yourself with God's Word. Because this is who you are, the Bible says in Genesis 1:27, God created man in His own image. That already tells you a lot. You are in His image. So no wonder you should be reading His book, His Word, His thoughts, so that you can be like Him. Because God created you in the image of God. He created you male and female according to this image, which means that even your sexuality, you're wondering, am I a man or a woman? Should I marry this girl or that? Should I have sex with the guy that I like in my class as a guy? Should I, try out, sorry to be a little bit rude, but should I try out that young girl who's just below 17? Should I worry about what the law says? How about my daughter's best friend? How about my best friend's daughter? How about an animal if I'm lonely in New Zealand, surrounded by 300 acres of farmland? How about what I want to do? I've already consumed and done what I desire. What's stopping me? Well, the answer we can begin to see here in Genesis 27 of the Bible, or the beginning of the origin of mankind in this world, is God created man in His own image. And He reveals this to us. He wants you to read this and think about it tonight and act on it. God did not reveal Himself to animals. Your puppy, as cute as she is not privy to this information. He revealed Himself to us. In fact, as I said just now in CRC on Sundays, we are looking at the entire history of God's revelation so that we can understand him and us. This is his love for us. This is kind of like his love letter to us. This is like your parents writing to you, telling you what their thoughts are so that you should read it again and again and understand how you are to live this life. He did not love animals in the same way. He loves us. You should read it. The whole story of God's relationship with us in the Bible, in fact, makes it clear that this world is not to be a world where animals just exist and us with it, and then we eat and poop, and they eat and poop, and we all just become fossil-filled, like represented in this diagram here, right? He made this world, in fact, for us to display our God-like characteristics. It's not just an endless cycle of biology, of molecules just moving around in different forms, from one form of carbon to another. You're not just carbon. One of the traumatic times in my life was to realize and to think of myself in this purely scientific terms, where some people, I don't know why they calculate these things, told me, or I read that I am basically half a kilo of calcium. So I picked up, my mother was forcing me to grow taller. I'm very worried, gun's a bit short, so stuffing calcium pills in me. So I picked up the bottle of calcium and looked at myself and looked at the pills and thought, who is who? You never did that? You never did that? And then it said that we have about the same amount of lead as what's in a few carbon pencils. I'm like, again? It was really traumatic for me. What am I? Who am I? If I'm just carbon, calcium, if a bunch of, then I found out how the brain worked. It wasn't this super higher power thing. It's a brain, and then electricity flows in it. Now I pick up my phone and I'm like, who is who? You laugh, but have you not been thinking about these things? I've been traumatized by it since I was 9. But thank God for the Bible. Thank God that the planet does not exist merely for us to poop on each other and then become fossil fuel and one of us to drive cars with us in it, in some form of carbon or another. Thank God, in fact, that this picture is inadequate, because the highest point in this world is not the sun, as our ancestors used to worship. The highest point is not the clouds or the sky, as our ancestors in China used to worship. The highest point is God. This planet exists for God. And because it exists for God, because we are made in God's image, as you read just now, then we can and we will and we must know ourselves when we know God's purpose in us. As the text said, let us make man in our image. But here we see in this sentence, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness, they will rule the fish of the sea. Think about that. Why are you a bank manager? Because you are made in God's image. You forgot that when you walked into work. You thought, I'm a bank manager because I'm a bank manager because I'm a bank manager. That's basically saying you're not any different from the pencil you're using. But the reason why you are able to rule, the reason why you're different from animals, the reason why you can argue and think, the reason why you know it's wrong to steal money from your bank is because we are made in God's image according to God's likeness. And that is an expression of that. That's an expression of that in 1:26. They will rule the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, livestock, whole earth, the creatures that crawl on the earth. So God created man in his own image. You can see already there, can't you, that you are very different from the animals. And every time I do Geddit 1, I have to explain this a little bit because we tend to think ourselves as just part of the ecosystem. I'll explain that very soon a little bit more. But we can see it already. During the camp skit, we did a little bit of that because there's a theme of that within the skit that I was trying to capture for you and make you think about. We saw that when the camp director was introducing the camp. The camp is really just kind of like a microcosmos of our planet. And you could see in all those beautiful images, I mean, I wrote the script, but even when I look at it, I'm thinking, wow. Sometimes when you look at our planet, you don't appreciate it. You just see a whole bunch of blue and green and brown. I've got a Microsoft screensaver, a desktop thing. When I open it up, I see parts of our planet. And I realize our planet is really amazing. And therefore, we are really amazing because God has made us amazing in an amazing planet where we can do and enjoy these things. Can a monkey do anything more with grapes other than squeeze it and throw it at each other together with their feces? Monkeys throw poo at each other, you know that, right? No, they can't make wine. They can't sell it for different prices. They can't say this is good wine, this is not, this is fortified, this becomes port, this becomes alcohol, this becomes brandy. They can't do any of that. We can enjoy the fine things of this life because we are not animals. All this is saying to us very clearly that we are made in His image. We are different from animals. We are God's workmanship. We are a display, in fact, of His glory. Our ability to harness the resources of this planet, make it more livable, comes, in fact, from Him. So obviously, again, then, we will know ourselves. I promise you this. We will know ourselves when we know God's purpose in us. The Bible is not some random holy book that Christians sometimes read. I apologize for the Christians who give you that impression. The ones who just kind of like, they just leave their Bibles around because they don't read it very much. I apologize for all Christians like that. That's not how it's meant to be. For every Christian, for every human being, in fact, the key component of how we may know ourselves and how to live this life is God. And He directs us, speaks to us in His living word, showing us who we are. In fact, when we don't pay attention to this Bible, you want to know more about it? Wikipedia it. Ask the person next to you, okay? They've got a Bible in their phone. You probably already have one. 66 books, beautifully written across geography and landscapes that are vastly different, but all by one united mind, God Himself, through His human authors. When we don't pay attention to this word, painstakingly written, and quite often in human history, people were persecuted for having it and killed. When we don't pay attention to this amazing artifact that's still in the British Museum, civilization honors the fact that we came up with this. When we don't pay attention to this, we are not paying attention to God. When we don't pay attention to this Bible, we are not paying attention to God's Son. When we don't pay attention to the Bible, God's Word, we are not paying attention to why God's Son died for us. You think you can understand yourself? You can't without God's Word. So how can you possibly think you can understand what actually took place on 33 AD when God the Son died? You see that sentence there, God the Son. Do you know who He is? You think He's just a carpenter, a contractor from Nazareth? That's what I thought until I read His words, until I understood who He is according to God's story. He's not just some random guru appearing saying, hey, look at me, I can do some miracles. Even Hindu yogis can do that. That is not why Christians believe in Him. I apologize again for Christians who think that the reason why I believe in Him is because He's just special. No. God reveals Himself to us in His Son, in His Son's teaching, which fulfills all that He has said in the past through prophets, in His Son's life and in His Son's death. You insult God when you refuse to read the Bible that explains your life through His life and death. We start with these words in the Bible from the book of Genesis. What you are seeing here in these first words then is the wonderfully privileged position of being a human being made in God's image, being the ones that God so cares for that He sends His Son to save us from rejecting who we really are. This is what's really at stake, guys. Get it? I know you think it's your friend's friendship. If I don't come, will you still like me? Sure. Yeah. But really the most important question is, if you don't come, how will you know this man and what he did for you and who you are? The writer of a book called Hebrews even says it this way. There's both wonder and appreciation in these words. What is man? That you are God, you are mindful of Him. Hear the wonder and the privilege, the joy in being loved, but also knowing that you are a little bit unworthy at least. What is the human being, the Son of Man, that you care for Him? Like I said, I know it's going to be hard if you join us next Sunday. I famously preach for very, very long hours. There will be no food to entertain you while you listen to me. Some of our own church people literally space out. They're not really there. You can poke them, they're like, okay. It's not easy, but we're recording it. You can revise it another time. But you know what? It's all about this intensity of purpose that comes from knowing who we are. We're not purposeless when we come to church. We're not just trying to get through half an hour and rush off to dim sum or whatever it is. We actually want to know God. So, because the whole Bible is really about Him. The whole Bible is really about this cross, this Jesus, this lovely Son who loves us, about why this all had to take place and why we're living our lives. Because this whole Bible is so useful in your life so that in the darkest moments you'll be fine. you'll be fine. It's not a cliche, because this Bible is the power for you to live in hope and love. So I actually would like to invite you to come on Sunday if you can. Or maybe I'll see you in 2 weeks' time, okay? That's fine too. But your friends have brought you here to know this truth. Your friends have brought you here to be confronted by the basic reality of what we've been reading in this Genesis statement, which is what we've been hearing so far. Now, I know you may still struggle with this because after I'm gone from your face, it's kind of easy to focus right now. I'm just right here. But once you go back, you're going to be thinking things like, but I mean, we're animals, what? What else is there? Anyway, maybe Christians, especially maybe like CRC people, they're like this higher level, whatever, they're thinking all these deep thoughts. But, what's so bad about being an animal? Maybe you're thinking like that. Maybe, in fact, you kind of enjoy being an animal. You like the fact that Christians are a little bit like losers in the Serengeti. They come to work and they're all just innocent, like meerkats waiting to be eaten. And you're the apex predator, right? Maybe, I don't know. Maybe you actually don't care that you are an animal. But I think you know, if I bring it up, that life will not work this way. I think you know not only that the Bible text is clear that we are in fact different. You want to behave like an animal, but you're not supposed to. Even your mother tells you, are you an animal? And you never once said, yes. Yes. Take this, woman. Okay? You know that we are meant to be different. But you also know, I think, especially when you're the one who's not the apex predator, you're the one who's being tired, we're saying at least, when you're being stepped on, you know that it's terrible when human beings don't acknowledge how different they should be. That you're not just people who exist on the basis of who's stronger, who's better, who's faster. Like the two guys who nearly railroaded me when I was driving. One was near here, PJ7. This is not me, by the way. This is Abang Botak. It's viral. I'm just using it as an example. It just keeps happening, right? But I just turned up from a legal turn. A lot of people don't do that. But I turned into NPE. And some joker decided that he wanted to show who's faster and bigger. So he went right up to my back. And then he came to my side and then drove me off the road. That didn't happen once. That happened second time in SS15. And if I drove more, it would happen even more. Some of you girls, I think, maybe even guys, you're pretty scared on the road, aren't you? Because KL people are rough. Maybe you can say, oh, they're the victim. Behind every bully is a victim. Yeah, well, they're animals, just like we are on the road. I don't know how Abang Botak feels now that it's been exposed. They're always apologetic after. But it's terrible to be animals. Maybe you're still thinking, no lah. Actually, animals sometimes are better. Well, yeah, I used to be like you because I read storybooks, not watched documentaries, but now I've repented. You know why? Okay, when you were a kid, who do you think was a noble animal that you like to mimic? We actually, a bunch of us run a summer camp, and our tribes, our groups also copy, with their totem animals are also animals. But the truth about animals is this, okay? When you were a kid, your parents asked you, what kind of animal are you going to be if you're going to be an animal? Obviously no one said hamster, okay? Well, that's kind of cute. That's true. But you at least said horse, right? Because they're tall and big. A lot of boys, though, right, would have said lion. No one said hippo, but that would have been smart, actually. Why you laugh, huh? Hippos are really dangerous. Anyway, a lot of you said lion. But if you had a lion as a father, guys, you would have died by now. Literally. You would have had a horrible life. When you look up the worst fathers in the animal kingdom, lions are at the top. Okay? You read the first paragraph of this article, and then you think, oh, it's terrible that they eat their children. No, the article's point is not that they eat their children. That's terrible. They already do that. They're so political, these creatures. But you don't have to try to read it. I'm going to read it for you, explain it to you. That when they take over a pride, if there's any child from a previous lion who was the apex leader, the head, he'll eat up all of them. Can you imagine that? Your mom marries a new dad. Your old dad died in an accident. You're like, hi, Dad. And he slices your throat out and then eats your liver and says, who's next? All his sisters are scared. And then he rapes them. Still want to be a lion? That wasn't the worst part. I haven't got to the worst part. The worst part, not this part. The worst part is they're lazy girls. They're so lazy. All that hair makes you think that he's always out there hunting. I got to take care of everything because I got the hair, But he's not doing any of that at all. He's just sitting there at home, lying down. Guess who's hunting? It's the lioness. Makes you want to be a feminist. The lionesses are hunting. He's doing nothing the whole day. If he even fights with anyone, it's because of politics. I'm the king. Say it. That's not the worst part. That's not the worst part. The worst part about this stupid creature, this overgrown gym junkie with the nice hair, that's all he is. Look at him, buff. Yeah, look at my abs. I'm not going hunting today. Look at me. I'm so powerful. Well, I'm hungry. The worst thing about this idiot, this gym junkie, this guy with too much hair product, is that if he is starving because the land is dry and there's not enough food, as a father, he will take all the food for himself and let his wives die. And he will watch the cubs die, and he will eat the cubs if he's hungry. You still want to be an animal? Because I tell you, you marry a guy like that, you're in massive trouble. A guy who spends all his time taking care of his abs and his looks. A guy who cannot serve, who doesn't know what he needs to hope in. A guy who doesn't know who he is himself, who just consumes and consumes and consumes. Any guy you date, you say, what animal would you be if you could be an animal? Lion. Walk out. Just walk straight out. Okay? I'll tell you, girls, if he knows his stuff, he should say, okay, if you ask him, what animal would you be if he says, albatross. Big smile. Really? Can I meet your mother? Albatrosses, man, they're very bad luck for sailors, but other than that, they're another time, okay? I'll give you more animal lessons another time. So take away that fantasy of thinking that being just another animal in the planet's ecosystem is okay. Face it, guys, you're different, you're special, you're meant to be better. You can be better. Just because other jokers on the KL highways are animals, in fact, it just makes the point that you should be different. Acknowledge the truth right here. You don't have to complain about them. Think about yourself. Acknowledge the truth of what God reveals to you in the Bible, that you are different and therefore responsible. You are not a lion. You are better than a lion. In fact, you are accountable to God because you are better than a lion. You are different. You are made in His image and you have to answer to Him by the end of your life. But even now, you should therefore live your life according to who God is, the one you were made, of whose image you were made. But it's a struggle, isn't it? Sometimes it's hard to get past that so-called scientific worldview where you exclusively think about everything as just biology, physics, chemistry to the exclusion of God. On that, I know that some of you are thinking, but is God scientific? Yes, very much so. Okay, just because you can't see Him, like you can't see radio waves or infrared waves, doesn't mean it's not true. The Bible reveals this to us. And so we need to get out of this view where we think purely in terms of biology and materiality. And one of the first things I've done, therefore, hopefully, is to show you you're different. The Bible tells us this. But also, you need to recognize that another way for many of us to reject God's view, another way we've all been using, is to argue that we are just merely biological products of the universe. We might not say we're animals. We might not say, I want to be an animal, Mom. But some of us just can't get out of this thinking that we're just flesh and blood, neurons just firing, molecules just banging around. In fact, in that earlier video you watched, I know it's been a while now, but if you remember, this guy, this philosopher, was helping some youth in Manchester to think about this, right? He said, we struggle, don't we, to understand who we really are. In fact, we get in trouble because when we think of ourselves as just material things, doing material things, then we end up thinking that, well, who really are we? Because once you take out the you, then the stuff is just there and you're gone. Are you really just a product of the things that you do? Is that really a you? If you're just the material things, doing the material things, if you're just another biological creature amongst all biological creatures doing stuff, then how are you different from the dust, the floor, the living things of this world? It's a struggle, isn't it? Like I said just now, especially if you start thinking about it at a young age, you may not always have the answers. And so we just exist. We try not to think about it. We essentially get up every day. Tomorrow's Monday. You can feel it. And if 7 hours or 8 hours, you have to get to work on time. You just exist. You go through the motions. And then as soon as you can, you get out of work, and then you try to go to something that's pleasurable. And then when someone asks you to think about what you're doing in life, you say, don't know. But that struggle is still there, isn't it? And that's why we're here. That struggle to know the real you. That's why we do all these magazine surveys. What's our personality? What's our personality in bed? What's our personality at work? But the moment it gets real and serious, we walk away. So we can't have this as an answer either. We can't have an approach in life where we just think, as long as I'm doing stuff, there's a me. It's kind of like, I think that's, in a sense, where you end up practically if you listen to that other philosopher that was watched before the skit. You think that since I'm just material things, doing material things, then I'll just try to be the best, like Sheldon from Big Bang in the way he thinks, okay? We're going to get to that. But we think in our version, since we're not Sheldons, that maybe I'll just be a doctor, okay? If I'm going to be a material thing, doing material things, I might as well try to be the best and help people, so I'll be a doctor. Or maybe we're a bit more, upfront. I want to be happy. I want to be rich. So then you want to become a businessman or a lawyer. Or maybe you think, I don't want to do all those things. I just want to exist and try to get away from work as soon as I can, so I get a hobby. I'm comfortable and I'm me as long as I'm busy with something that makes me happy. Any one of those versions is just you at the center of doing lots of things. I never really fully thought about this before, but one of the young people in my church explained this to me. They said, actually, the reason why we watch YouTube is so that we don't have to think about other things, so that we're distracted. It struck me. People are really running away from trying to face up to who they are. That's why YouTube works, as opposed to a long, boring book that makes you think, because it's 2-3 minutes at a time, and you just keep clicking next. You watch little skit after little skit, because you're really worried about how the center, you, does not hold once you take away the clicks, the videos, the girlfriends, the toys, the things you do. When we see people manifest this in their lives, where they literally live their life for the hobbies, for the things they do, for their work or whatever, we know that they're losing themselves. Isn't it funny that you're doing so much and you're saying, I'm having a time of my life, but actually you're becoming less you every moment you do it? My sister at one time had 3 friends who were all surgeons. So she would go to their family for dinner. 3 friends, okay? And they were all in the same family, and one was married to a surgeon. And then their parents were also doctors. She told me they're the most strange conversations in the world, because when you ask them, how are you, it's all about work. They literally joke about kidneys. Sometimes they bring parts home. They're like, hey, look at this guy's kidney. Some people clearly need to know who they are if they weren't doing the things that they're caught up with doing. Are you one of those people? Or do you know people like this? Maybe you're on the way to being this kind of person. Because they're too caught up with what they're doing. Maybe that's us. Maybe that's why Geddit's helpful for you now, because you actually stop to think about what you need to think about. We laugh at these people. Like maybe the Star Trek nut, right? Do they really live in this world when they dress up like this for work? When the boss gives the opportunity to, dress however you want for today, Friday, or sports fans. I know it's important. I know the team's important, but what if the Raiders change the name to Riders? Or some of you who live for your boyfriend or girlfriend. You're almost nothing without that person. And if you've tattooed her name or his name on your butt, what's gonna... It's painful, having laser surgery. I mean, and you say, I could never live without you. Really? But then, who can you live with then? Who are you? We know, in fact, that we can't just be the things that we do, the things that we love, the things that we consume, the things that we want, but yet we introduce ourselves all the time to people when they ask, who are you? And we say, I'm an engineer. I didn't ask what you did, but that's how you answered it. I am a doctor, I'm a musician, I'm a tennis player. What if you fell off the ranks, so top 100 players in the world? What would you be then? Not a tennis player? Some of you depend on relationships for that. Who are you? I'm a father. What if your children turn out to be idiots? What if your children don't love you anymore? Are you less of a person then? And then some of you depend on yourself to be yourself. Who are you? I'm me. I'm just me. I'm happy to be me. Well, back to the same question. Who are you? In fact, we know that this issue is pertinent and serious because something as simple as an accident can set you spinning around thinking about these things. When we lose a body part, for instance, that's important to us. Are we still us? I have a scar on my right thigh. It's affected who I am, for my identity for a long time because the surgeon did not sew it up. So it's kind of like different now. The right leg is different from the left leg. And for about a year, I felt like I was in some kind of glitch because I wasn't quite sure who I was anymore because my right thigh was no longer the same. It wasn't symmetrical. You know, that kind of thing that sets you off? It would have been great if I had known who I was according to the one I'm made for. Instead of looking inside, we actually need to look to the one who is outside of us, who made us, the one who has created us with a clear purpose. Because we are not just molecules banging around, and we must acknowledge that we are real. We are not just a brain, a spine, limbs, and lungs. Like in that video, I think what was helpful about that is that he pointed out, you've got all these parts on a watch, but it's a real watch. That watch is still a watch, even though one part is made in China, another part is in Switzerland. It doesn't need to have this weird identity crisis. It's a watch. Put together, it's a watch. Well, guess who we are? We're made by someone who has put together, sure, parts that are sometimes used in a pencil, parts that sometimes end up as fossil fuel, parts that you might actually sit on yourself or eat. But we are us. You see, the more you think about it in that chaos of trying to work out who you are, the more you see that the most important thing to understand is not whether you got 15 A's and now you're a surgeon, what you do. The most important thing is that whether you're a beggar or a wealthy man, the most important thing to understand is a person, God. It is not to understand yourself, but it is in understanding your Father, the one who made you, that you will know you. This is completely counterintuitive in a world that has rebelled against God, but this is actually the answer to all your problems. You got to wake up to the fact that there is a real you and not pretend that you are just what you do or what you like doing. And you got to wake up to the fact that therefore that real you needs to be known and to know God. I know not all of you are experienced in this. Maybe you're thinking about this a little bit, but you're not completely following. So I brought in the big guns. I'm going to bring in Sheldon, okay? Who here watches Big Bang Theory? Wow, not enough. I don't know whether it's going to be worth it. But in the morning, it's really different. I don't know why. Not many people watch Big Bang Theory. But one thing that's really interesting is happening to Sheldon, and it's happened for about 6 seasons already. The writers really do a lot with his character. You may not know this, but this is one of the long-running sitcoms in the States, and they're getting back together again for some of you. Yay. But the Big Bang writers are, in fact, doing what we're talking about to Sheldon all the time. Because, you see, he's one of these people who thinks that we're just animals. His mom, by the way, believes in what we're saying. His fictitious mom believes in what we're saying. She's a Christian. So she believes that we are all created for God's glory, that we will know ourselves in knowing Him. But Sheldon is Mr. Scientist, right? It's all about biology. And he happens to be having a large dose of the gifts that go to this planet's biology. So he's got an IQ of whatever, right? 180 or whatever it is. So it's brilliant. So his view of life is everything's logical. Everything's just a result of how efficient you are and how productive you are in it. His hero is Mr. Spock. But then you see, he started going out with this girl called Amy Farrah-Fowler. I think it's Farrah-Fowler. Amy Fowler. But then she dumped him. So he tried his best to be logical about it. Oh, well, that's how things go. But that's not how things went. Suddenly, the real Sheldon woke up. The real Sheldon who felt completely crappy every day, even though his work was progressing. Even though things were the same, his toilet seat was exactly how he liked it. He was bullying his roommate the way he likes it. Everything's exactly the same, yet things had completely changed because the real you is real. The real you needs to hope, to love, to be loved, to know. The real you needs to have more than just the things that you do or the things that you're good at doing. In fact, this happened again to him a second time because logic again failed him when his work, which ironically involves logic, turned out to be less than productive. So then he was affected again because you see, depends on his whole life, depends on knowing himself in terms of the things he does and how good he is at doing it. But again, Sheldon found life was really futile because his theoretical physics turned out to be completely theoretical. I think you and I, we need to wake up to what Sheldon had to realize. Whatever I'm saying tonight, this has to be the beginning of you saying to yourself, I'm going to confront this. I'm going to read the Bible. I'm going to get people to ask tough questions about me. I'm going to look at the things I do in life and confront why I do these things. Am I really addicted to that thing? When I say I'm in control of gaming and my Steam account says I play 50,000 hours a year, 5,000 hours a year, 50,000 is a lot, right? I play 5,000 hours a year. You got to confront who you are. What are you? You're not even a real gamer. The Bible is so helpful in this. We are, for the most part, not even at the apex of our jobs, our industries, our careers, like Sheldon is, fictitiously, of course. So we have even more to wake up to realize. Even in our productivity, in fact, in this world, there is a real sense of futility, which the Bible helpfully points out to us. Our confidence in our work is misplaced because, as even the philosopher points out, there is a real sense of futility when we define ourselves because we see that we are like a waterfall. It's not in the video, but it was later at the 8th minute. He says we are like a waterfall, and life just keeps moving with or without us. We ebb and flow. Now, I didn't bring this up, and you can go watch the video yourself another time, but in fact, he didn't actually tackle this completely or fully. In fact, he can't, because really the Bible is the best perspective on this issue of you not feeling permanent. I don't know how many of you can relate to this sense that whatever you do is just dissipating, like mist, like wind. I felt that long time in work. You know, in my workplace, every year we have a product cycle, because I was in marketing, right? I hope you're all not going to be depressed on Monday. You know, if you spend hours in something like Sheldon, but it ends up just being one version of another thing, 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 after a while, it's just this. It looks pretty, your life, but that's when you take one screenshot of it. But it's just flowing endlessly on, and it's the same old stories, the same old problems. Whether you're a junior officer or the managing director, it's the same. I remember one night, just slaving away, and our Excel sheets are about, sometimes up to 3,000-4,000 lines. 3,000-4,000 lines? Just thinking about it gives me nightmares all over again. I don't know why, but my Japanese boss can spot a mistake in the whole thing. He goes, do it again. I haven't eaten since 2 o'clock. I'm late for Bible study. What is my life now? When you leave and you go to the MRT in Singapore, and you're the last guy on the train, and you see all these sad people sleeping in the train, you feel like this waterfall. You ask, what is all this for? It really does feel sometimes in life that you are just impermanent, just a mist floating and flowing away. The philosopher wants to, in that video, you'll watch it later if you want, say, that's a process. That's who you are. Accept that. I think he's using a bit of Buddhist philosophy in what he says as well. The idea that we just reincarnate and cycle through from being an animal in one cycle to being a human being to being a better human being. The progress is there. But that is not how God wants you to see it. Rather than simply accepting this is from God. This great sense of discomfort is from God. God is getting us to think, like I'm trying to get you to think tonight about this horrific reality of life without Him. The book of Ecclesiastes raises this. It starts by saying in the first chapter, the wind blows to the south and goes around to the north. It's not giving you a geography lesson. It's giving you a pattern to feel that futility in your own life. You have to read the rest of the book to see this. Around and around goes the wind, and it circuits, and on its circuits the wind returns. All streams run to the sea. That water molecule, it's like, yeah, I'm making it. Yeah, I'm making it. I'm progressing. It's just moving from one end to the next into the saliva of a cow, gets spat out, urinated, and then back. And the next thing you know, it's over there as you were using to flush our urine. The sea, streams flow into the sea, but the sea is not full. To the place where the streams flow, there they flow again and again and again. That's your life. You don't believe me? Try to go to a bunch of funerals for 5 friends all in a row, one week after another. It will change you. How many times are you going to say, they live a good life? I mean, seriously, they're dead. They will never be, after all their effort. The book of Ecclesiastes, like the Bible, is trying to shock us into realizing that when our explanation for our lives is that that's just the things that we do, us and the things that we do, then it seems like we are nothing. We are just water flowing round and round, never being permanent. There's a question of eternity in our hearts. Left to our own explanation and observation of life, we really do end up like this waterfall going everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Don't get depressed on Monday, huh? Hang in there. Come back and get it too. But without this knowledge of God, you're going to stay depressed. If you work hard and long enough, you'll begin to see that life really is very futile in this way. Because there's this constant striving, but no permanence. Without God, especially. This King Solomon, he experienced life to the full. But without God, this is what he says in chapter 2, sentence 17. Therefore, see the therefore? I hated life. Again, as Asians, we think, no, it'd be wonderful to have all the Lamborghinis he does and all the women he does. But he says, therefore, I hated life, because the work that was done under the sun was distressing to me, for everything is futile. Everything is futile and a pursuit of the wind. It's fun pursuing the wind until your boss says, catch more, or catch the first one for me. It's fun when you're a kid because it's just enjoying yourself, right? But what if everything you are is to do that? You'll be stuck in that field for the rest of your eternal lives. Therefore, you should realize how hateful this life is without knowing God, knowing this higher purpose, knowing who you are. You will hate all your work. Because especially in the end, as he says in sentence 18, 19, guess what? It's all going to be ruined by the next guy after you. All your effort. Tajie is here, raise your hands. All the big sisters. You arrange the whole cupboard. Guess who comes along and screws it all up in 5 minutes? Older sister type people in the workplace. You refile everything perfectly. Boss comes along, screws it up. I don't know how politicians do it, frankly. How do they do it? How does someone like Anwar keep striving away and say, and then now look at the party? How do you go to jail for all these so-called higher purposes and you keep seeing how futile it can be, especially without God to fix things? Now, you see, I sound depressing. I get this feel and look every time I talk about this. It's an interesting job, this. But I'm not the only person raising this. You have clicked it before, but you're not thinking and listening. Because on the internet, you'll find that this is not just Christian propaganda. It's just people waking up to reality. The average person thinks and comes up with this. Obviously, he's not Christian, right? Don't see any Christianity there. But look at it. Just take a moment to understand where you are. Okay? Do you think you're that person over here? No, you're not. You're energy at some point. The real question is, on this cycle of life, this horrific image of you and your life, we should just put this up as a poster at your funeral. He was a good piece of meat. Wait, he's going to be a good piece of meat. Because at one point, you're going to be grass, and a cow is going to eat you. Then you are going to eat the cow. If you exist. This is horrific. So what do we do when we can't cope with this? When we don't continue with the Bible's introduction to who you are, basic 101 on humanity. Instead of reading up what God says to you and confronting it, what do we do with it? We come up with another yellow poster, 8 hard truths about life, in a life hack. Look at it, man. Just look at it now. And is this your Bible? Is this how you want to live your life? Number 1, everyone you love is going to die. Well, you want to run away, like when you want to run away with the Bible, right? But then he's true. It's right. This guy's right. Everyone you love is going to die. Who's going to say, no, they're not? Seriously. Let's move on to number 2, okay? Everyone you love is going to die, okay? It's a life hack. Accept it. But then number 2 says, we give our lives meaning. We give our lives meaning. If you feel like life is meaningless, that's your fault. Really? That's your answer? That's your answer to the reality that we all face? It's your fault. It's your fault. Just make it meaningful. Well, think about how meaningful it's going to make it for you, right? 3, the perfect partner doesn't exist. Concentrate on finding someone who has a lot of qualities you like and the same values. Wait, you just said the perfect partner doesn't exist. If I find someone who has a lot of qualities I like, then the perfect partner does exist. So does she exist or does she not exist? Oh, number 4, life is a game. Oh, okay. So I don't have to take anything too seriously, right? Find the games I want to play, learn the rules, find a way to be successful. But then, even if I play that game, point 5, everything ends. Everything ends. So how is that? Oh, I see. The perspective is because everything ends, I'll just biologically learn to appreciate what's going on right now before everything ends. Okay, how about you actually do 1 to 5 for your child? Oh, that's a nice drawing. It's all going to end. Let me hasten the process. Light it on fire. There you are. Did you enjoy it while it was still there? How about you just walk in your son's room or daughter's room, your wife's closet, or your husband's wardrobe and take out everything and go, you know what? It's all going to go when you die in 2 years anyway. Let me just throw all of it out now. Why not you treat the whole of life consistently as a game where everything ends? Well, in point 6, he suddenly says, be romantic about the little things. You see how futile the whole thing is? It's just trying your best to make the most out of a sad situation without actually fixing any of these issues. Now, I'm telling you, the Bible does not leave you this way. The Bible tells you why people die in this world. I can tell you everything I'm going to tell you next 7 Geddits, okay? I won't, because you're taking a lot in right now. But the Bible does not leave you hanging. It doesn't give you some stupid life hack that doesn't actually hack anything. The Bible tells you why people die. The Bible tells you why Jesus died. The Bible tells you why Jesus had to die, because people are dying. The Bible is realistic about the big things. See how point 7 completely contradicts everything? I thought you just said life is a game. But now you're saying life isn't a movie. And then point 8, it says, figure out a way or don't complain. Well, I'm complaining about your life hack right now, and I'm telling you, you suck. Your 8 hard truths, they don't work, dude. Why don't you just read the Bible for once, shut up, and then write something after you read the whole of it and thought through it? This is not helpful. As valuable as some of the advice is, it's about as useful as telling someone who is watching their parents die that they love, that if they get a hobby, they'll feel better towards the end. This is as helpful as you working tirelessly at a thankless job, and then someone telling you, you know what, if you just have a positive outlook, then you can take the bullying easier. We tend to do that to ourselves all the time. We tend to just glaze over it. For once in life, don't do that. There's this scene in a Band of Brothers which depicts one particular battalion in World War II. They were stationed in France. It was particularly difficult. Conditions were horrible. Men were dying horribly. And one of the privates was going through PTSD, I think. He was having some partial blindness. And the scene was very much like this. You're just shell-shocked. There's people exploding around you all the time. Guts are flying everywhere. You're being attacked. You urinate in your own trench, in your foxhole. It's cold, it's miserable. The army didn't provide you with enough. But one of the lieutenants comes around to one of the trenches and says to that private who's suffering PTSD and says, the reason why you are not performing is you're taking everything too seriously. It's just a game. You hear that? This is the kind of advice we are giving each other. Bro, it's okay, man. Your dad died. He's in a better place. Bro, don't take so seriously lah. It's okay, Anna. Just chill, man. Okay, just chill. Keep calm and keep going on. Bro, it's just a game, man. Just a game. I know it is not popular to be this serious in church, in your life. I know we have a strong urge to push away God's advice, what He's saying to us, to say to Him, I don't need you to tell anything. But are you seriously, at the death of a friend, going to take that life hack poster and then hand it to them and say, read it, man, helpful? Is that how you're going to react to life and the obvious miseries of a life where we have rejected God? Not knowing God, rejecting His revelation is a very, very, very poor strategy for knowing yourself. Because again, I say to you, and maybe finally for the last time, again I say to you, God said, let us make man in our image. Do you see a remote God there who doesn't know what you're going through? Do you see a God who does not understand you? Do you see a watchmaker who's just left you behind so that you're worn by different people, used in different ways, left to fend for yourself? No, God said, let us make man in our image according to our likeness. We are bound together. Breaking this down, in case you don't fully understand this, let me make sure you hear this in two clear propositions. One, what this sentence and the rest of the Bible attest to clearly is that we are not random DNA like the rest of this world. We are over the creatures. You see that in the first sentence. But secondly, even more importantly, the reason why this is so is because we are God's image. So this is exactly what we must grasp tonight, that God has fashioned us, and all we need to do is to look for Him, and we will begin to see ourselves clearly. Why don't you start that tonight? Why don't you not wait till the next Geddit? Why don't you start understanding who you are by either reading the Bible or asking your friend to explain to you the Christian landscape, the Christian story of where we are going, especially why Jesus came into this world to save us. Because either way, God has the measure of you. Tonight, maybe you came not expecting to be jumped on like this. Maybe you thought it'd just be like a very neutral style talk. You can decide what you want to do with it. But the reason why I sound like this is because the Bible sounds like this. Let me show it to you, right? Genesis 6:5. Last week in church, we actually read this text. Instead of us deciding what's right and wrong, we see that in Genesis 6, it is God who has the jump on us. It is God who sees the problem of evil even before we want to see it. We're enjoying ourselves. We're doing all these things to each other. We're only going to ask ourselves, hey, do you think it was a good idea that I slept with all those women? We're going to ask ourselves only after we've dropped the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, do you think it was a good idea that we did it? We asked it before, but then later we'll have more thoughts on it. We're going to continue to think about these things as if we're just rolling along and working out as we go along like a waterfall. We're going to count out life hacks that don't fully work out. But God has the jump on us. The Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention and thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. I'll leave you to read how he then responded to that. But we see this also in the book we've been looking at, Ecclesiastes 3. Moreover, I saw under the sun that in the place of justice, even there was wickedness. And in the place of righteousness, even there was wickedness. God is saying to us in his scriptures, not just these two places, but more and more you will see as you read the Bible, that there is a clear problem in this world that he is very much aware of, very clear on, and that's why Jesus died. Because although you don't care about how you are living in his world, you clearly are destroying it. And God will not put up with you doing this. So you see, there is not only this angst that you feel. I'm not here to be your guru, to give you some kind of psychological help in finding a way to live life better. I'm not that kind of Tony Robbins kind of person. I'm here about pretty much no nonsense, clear teaching from God himself about real issues and real problems which you may not care for, but are exactly what this world is confronted with, that God is concerned about. And that includes, that's especially the problem of evil. That life hack there, again, when you think about it, those 8 points, the main reason why it fails is because it doesn't address the reality of this failure. It thinks that human beings can just hack life, when in the first place, we ourselves have suffered a massive failure of knowing and loving God and each other and worshiping him. And that's why we see here, Genesis 6:5, Ecclesiastes 3:16, we are wicked and unjust to others. If you keep coming, you'll need to embrace the fact that there will often be times when your Father, God, will speak to you out of love for you in a way that will change you and rebuke you and will cause you to be uncomfortable. Just like in this picture here, I don't know, is this a picture of love? I suppose maybe choosing these two of this particular skin color is helpful for you. It's neutral. But on the other hand, you may have stereotypes in your mind as well. But what is this? Is this a picture of love? It's a good question, isn't it? Because what you expect from church maybe is not this scene. What you expect is a smiling face from a happy boy with no one in that picture besides himself doing what he wants. But God, in this picture, if I've depicted it this way, is rightly the owner, the judge, as we portrayed with Yavin Raja in the skit, and also therefore our teacher. God will judge, Ecclesiastes 3:17 says, the righteous and the wicked. He's got to jump on us. For there is a time for every matter and for every work. You know that waterfall imagery, that water imagery that the Bible gives us, that confronts us, making you think, who are you? Where are you going? Guess who controls that water? Guess who has the slotting of times? Guess who made this world? Guess who caused this world to be judged at a certain point? Guess who has sent his son into this world at a particular time in Israel's history? Guess who has caused his son to be sacrificed for our sake, to live again, to resurrect? Guess who will bring the end of this world and the beginning of a new one? It is this God who is in control of all time. And of course, he's in control of when you die, of your personal end. The biggest wake-up call for everything I'm saying is death. By then, it will be too late. What do you want me to say to you at the hospital bed? Maybe you remember my number from this time. 20 years later, you just suddenly call me. We don't think of death as very serious, but in fact, we should wake up to it. The Bible is full of it. Ecclesiastes 3:18 says, I said in my heart in regard to the children of man that God is testing them, that they may see that they themselves are but beasts. Because what happens to the children of man, what happens to the beast is the same. As one dies, so dies the other. All go to one place, all are from dust to dust, all return. Have you recognized that fact? From the very beginning, all this is the work of God. The reality is we are made wonderfully to be clear and to be able in this life to have a good life with God. But without him, we lose our soulmate. We lose the one who has given us this life itself. And we are set adrift like starving people who can't eat or sleep with satisfaction. Ecclesiastes 3 says, I have seen the business that God has given to the children of man to be busy with. He has made everything beautiful in his time. Also, he has put eternity into man's heart, yet so that he cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end. When you are young and beautiful like you are, you tend not to think about death, right? But in the last 2 months of this church's life, I haven't really experienced this very often, so I'm bringing it up. 3 people have died. That's not a lot, actually, in terms of world standards, but because we are so immune to this, because we're not living in a village anymore, where when one person dies, everybody finds out about it quickly, because we are living in apartment blocks, many of us, sometimes people die right next to us, we don't even know. Because of that, this needs to be said. There is a reality of our mortality that again reminds us that as capable and wonderful as we are, the reality also is that God has the jump on us, that we can hack our life as much as we want, but in the reality of death, we cannot therefore avoid the questions that need answers. The answers from the Bible are really definite, and you owe it to yourself to make sure you understand God. Religion will not even really help, actually. There are people who think, despite everything we've said, that all we need to do is have some rules. After everything I've said, I hope you now see how that too is not a life hack that can work. We are definitely not about propagating religion here in Geddit or in this church. People will say to you, in this life, who knows where we'll go in the end? Or we only have one life. So a version of life hack is, that life hack was saying, let's just treat life as valuable because we only have a short life. But religion says, well, let's just buy him some insurance. We don't know whether it worked fully or not. Who knows whether God will send you hell or heaven. He'll weigh it up maybe. So just try your best lah. Do your best. To this uncle who is a Buddhist or Roman Catholic or whatever, I can ask, what about you? Do you manage to reach those standards? And he'll say, try only lah. I'm on my way lah. But what if he dies next week? You can't think that religion is good enough for you to be fine. Not if you really confronted the issues and the reality of what we've been talking about. You can see that no matter how much you go to the temple, wash yourselves, give alms to the poor, you will come up short. Our greatest example of this, and of course I'm not going to elaborate on this, is the people of Israel. They're very special people. Their goal was not merely to be religious, but what they did have is what Paul the apostle calls, he was himself a Jew, an Israelite. He said they had the adoption, the glory, the covenants, the giving of a law, the worship, the promises. As a quick summary of how this nation had direct access to how God wanted them to behave in a time before what we are telling you now, the truth about everything. In that time, in that special time, what they needed was simply to act as these people who understood these things. So they had laws particularly. But you see, in the end, just like religion, law will also fail. We've got one character in this skit who's always going to be wanting to just kind of stay on the right side of the right side. He'll always ask what the rules are. But look at him. He knows what the rules are. Can't really change his heart though. Israel, Paul says, who pursued a law that would lead to righteousness did not succeed in reaching that law. The law is such a wonderful thing because it portrays and shows us what God is really like. But as a means of yourself becoming perfect, well, ask any Buddhist, ask any Muslim, you'll find that you will fail. Law cannot be used, religion cannot be used to become perfectly like God. You are already made in the image of God. You are already called to live according to God's ways. But how you arrive at that is by asking yourself who you are according to this image and understanding how Jesus came so that you could live this life. And that's what we're going to commit to doing as we keep meeting together. So this is the goal of Geddit, and that's what it really means to be getting it. I hope this has been a good introduction to you so that you know what you're doing the next time. Maybe for you, you're thinking, this first talk has been a little bit hard for me. Maybe you need more time to think about it, but don't give up yet. Don't think, I'm not used to thinking these things. Remember, everything I've said to you is necessary. And of course, my goal is so that at least you can hear in March 2021 this life that we're supposed to live together. And none of them are, by the way, separate from each other. So I'm going to be talking in a sequence, just like the skits are in a sequence. So you can't just think, I'm going to appear in March and then skip all the rest, just like my lectures. You guys always go first and last, right? First and last. You have no exams in this church, but that's not how it works. Because if you're going to understand how you are this glory and honor of God, as the Hebrews writer says, if you're going to understand how to live this life where God has put everything in subjection under your feet, then you must keep coming and keep thinking about these things and embrace the truth about yourself. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? You came in one person that you thought you were. I'm saying to you, that person you think you are, it's not good enough. It is not who you really are. It is not an adequate way of living this life. You will fail. What you need to be is what you already are according to God. Glorious. According to your role. The role of being God's image on earth. According to your task. The task of being godly, like God, which will manifest itself in 1,000 different jobs for sure, and which will be seen in good consequences in this world. According to this wonderful life that He has created for us, this future, this hope, this life of love that He has given us, which we can say is a fulfillment of this crowning of glory and honor. Do you understand what I'm trying to say to you? I'm telling you, I'm speaking to you, I'm talking to you about something that's better than any property you'll ever buy, any syllabus, any university degree you'll ever get. And it's all for free. Because this truth is from God, the truth about yourself. Sadly, none of this is the way the world is perfectly today. At present, the Bible writer of this book says, we do not yet see everything in subjection to Him. That's the reality we're also going to have to talk about, especially the next round of Geddit. And so what we need to see is the crucial issue is you and I not giving God worship. This sentence I've been reading again and again about how we are crowned in glory and honor. It comes from a beautiful song in the Old Testament. And here, if I read it out for you, you'll see where it sits in the context of knowing God. Let me read it for you. For the choir director, Psalm 8, a Psalm of David. Lord, our Lord, how magnificent is your name throughout the earth. You have covered the heavens with your majesty. From the mouths of infants and nursing babies, you have established a stronghold on account of your adversaries in order to silence the enemy and the avenger. When I observe your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars, which you set in place, what is a human being that you remember him, a son of man that you look after him? You made him little less than God and crowned him with glory and honor. You made him ruler over the works of your hands. You put everything under his feet. All the sheep and oxen, as well as the animals in the wild, the birds of the sky and the fish of the sea that pass through currents of seas. Lord, our Lord, how magnificent is your name throughout the earth. You see what it sounds like when you understand the things that we have been speaking to you of, captured in this idea of being crowned with glory and honor? In the first sentence and the last sentence, it is the worship of God. In fact, in this worship of God, we realize our truest and fullest potential of who we really are. And in this worship of God, in being His image, in giving Him glory, we are enabled to actually carry out the task, the role of being His image, in treating each other with love and respect, in not being animals to each other, in being the people who have this hope in Him. In this worship of God, we can raise children who are different from their neighbors, who are different from the animals who want to persecute them and hurt them, who are different from the people who want to create war and disharmony in this world. In this worship of God, we realize who we really are, and we continue to have joy even in the toughest of moments and in the worst parts of our life. Because what we have is bigger than ourselves and the things we do and the things we like to do and consume. What we have is God Himself. And when we have God, we have us. Until we have us in God's eyes, according to what He understands us to be, we will never have God. So, if you understand that this is what is on offer, then I hope you will pick up this Bible and read it for yourself. You don't have to wait for the next Geddit. But do keep coming and discuss it right after this with the friend who brought you. I hope she or he is capable of speaking about these things. In a sense, just open the Bible and maybe it should be fine. But hear what the Bible is saying to you. The situation in this world is terrible. All have sinned and fall short of this glory. The Bible calls this sin because it is rebellion against God and a rejecting of the knowledge that we have in how to live this life under Him. But don't give up hope, because we have seen that we are meant to be different, and in Jesus we find we have real hope. Because although this man looks like a loser on a cross, it is precisely because of our context and our situation of needing salvation that He died for us. And in doing that, He shows us what it really means to be human. To be human is not to consume and to enjoy yourself, but to be human is to be able to love the way God loves us. To be human is to understand yourself so truly that you are willing and able to die for other people. You want to be in a world where people love you like that? Well, become a Christian tonight. See how this glory that God has given to this planet in us is fulfilled in us knowing who He is and knowing who His Son is, and understanding therefore our mission and purpose in this life. I hope to see you again the next time.